Yeah.
What are we getting all our screws for?
I know the blue zinc ones that are nice.
Well, it's fittings and screws and stuff.
Oh my.
Yeah. The future things.
We got the things to do the things for when the things show up.
Mm-hmm.
We figured it's probably a good time to talk about what things can contaminate a headphone or cause it to potentially have a shorter lifespan than normal. We've seen this from time to time where a headphone or any piece of electronics is a victim of their environment. You know, like an obvious thing would be dropping your phone in a toilet.
That's right.
Right. They're a little bit more hardened against that these days. But you see this a lot, especially in like coastal areas. You see significantly accelerated degradation of various things that are outside the house or even inside because of the salt that's carried in the air from the salt water.
That's true. Coastal areas.
Yeah, like air conditioners and stuff like that. Very common issue for them to rot out much
Any
faster.
hardware like lighting on the outside of the house just goes corrodes.
That's true.
Takes
A lot of
out
things like that.
aluminum and stuff like that.
And like
wood.
Steels,
Even
woods.
wood.
Around here,
really.
we have salt on our roads in the winter.
Yeah.
So people don't know in areas where you don't have salted roads, but cars rust out much, much faster.
Oh, yeah. Because it gets
3 to
into
5
nooks and
years,
crannies.
You start getting
It just
considerable
sits
rust.
there.
Yeah, it festers.
Yeah. Depends on the car design.
Yeah.
Some tolerate it better than others, but rusty or salty water is really bad on things.
That's like worst case scenario because it's like
Right.
you are just getting peppering it with salt.
It is pretty bad.
when the roads are wet.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the time they're dry, but
Yeah.
when it's bad, it's
There's
bad.
a few months of the year where your car's just getting blasted with salt water.
Yeah.
And turns out it's not good.
That's got to be some engineering when you think about it, just trying to figure out how to keep the salt from eating things. I remember back in
deal
the
with
day,
it.
our fenders would rust out, especially the inner fenders. Now they're all plastic
No,
inside.
they're not plastic.
No,
There's
they have
better
liner.
design,
They have
better
plastic
coating.
liners.
This is lying.
Yeah.
But they
You know.
they coat them now. Like whole vehicles are.
Yeah, they
coated.
dip them.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I know
make
the
sure it gets
Porsche. The
everywhere.
Porsche dips their whole body in.
a lot of
Most
manufacturers
manufacturers do
is
that.
that what they do? Because it's all welded and they dip the whole
Dip the
body.
whole
whole
thing.
thing.
Because then you get into everywhere.
That works.
It works very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not practical in a headphone to do something. like
Yeah,
that.
well, you got other
It's a
things.
different thing.
Anodizing and such. But
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Not the whole thing.
Aluminum's
Oh.
quite not as susceptible to these things as other metals, like steel, obviously,
Yeah.
corrodes like crazy in salt water. But you typically don't really see a whole lot of saltwater atmospheres and environments that headphones are going to be exposed to. So there's other atmospheric predicaments that you run into with headphones. And
yeah, indoors even.
indoors. Yeah. We see a wide range. We see people, occasionally we get headphones back for whatever reason. And there's a huge variation between the condition the headphone's in when we get it back. A lot of times we get them back perfectly mint. Sometimes we get them back and they're very, very dirty.
Yeah.
For one reason or another. Either they're frequently eating when they're wearing their headphones, or they leave them next to something.
Well, we
that
don't
get
even know.
splatters
Well,
on.
that's the
Not like we
We
got a
can
camera
always
on
assume
these things.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the
But
problem. But you're right. It looks like
Huge
Have you ever
variance.
pulled a nacho chip out of them?
It's sometimes, yeah.
Maybe the
there's
salsa?
pieces of things like that.
Yeah,
Sometimes in
it does.
headphones.
It is weird sometimes when you see them.
Yeah,
you know, and
huge variance.
And I mean, I don't think that even like took out the headphone. That wasn't really the issue, but it certainly adds to it in terms of making it right because we want to. When we ship them back, we want them to be clean. So it's like an hour. It's an hour of disassembly just to get all the suds out of it or whatever you want to call it. You know,
It's
can be.
shocking to me
Yeah.
the
It does take
condition
time.
some people expose their high-end headphones to. Because a lot of people out there, I'm sure, they're enthusiasts. To them, this
Well,
is a
most
big
people
deal.
take really good care of
They
them.
take really good care, and
These
you see a lot
these
of
are
that.
outliers for
Of
sure.
course, of
you know.
course. But
Yeah.
it's surprising how many people like that there are. There's really no correlation with age either. We get some headphones back that are 6, 7 years old, mint, immaculate.
Yeah, some of them look so cool. It's like, did you ever even
Right.
use it?
Yes.
And other headphones, they're 6 months old and they're demolished. There's just like grease all over them, chunks of stuff.
Jeeps are like that too. You ever look at used Wranglers?
They're rusted?
I've seen ones with like
Because
20,
they're all-
30,000 miles on it, and they are just, the whole
Just beat,
bottom's
yeah.
just rusted
Yeah.
out. I'm like, what the hell did you do? Obviously, they were driving it through brush all the time,
Right.
just
It's
scratching the
abrading
shit
the
out of
surface.
it. You know,
Yeah.
and then you combine that with the salty roads in the winter, and it's like, it takes like 2 years, the thing's shot.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I've seen Jeeps, like I bought a used one years ago, and it was like mint, you know, with
Depends how you use it.
90,000 miles on it. So yeah, it just totally
Yeah.
depends on how you treat the thing. It's the same. That's what we're trying to get at with the headphone side of it. Like,
Right.
you know, we've seen things like smoking, which isn't as prevalent in cigarette smoking, but cigarette smoke, I know years ago when I used to deal with the electronic side of the industry, man, CD players used to get in, and cigarette smoke would actually get inside the electronics,
Yeah.
coat the optical lens and stuff.
Yeah.
And they stopped reading the CD. The thing wasn't reading a CD. It would skip. It would whatever. There was so much smoke that it actually, you wouldn't think it would get inside a closed box like a piece of electronics or a television.
Yep.
But it does.
It's incredibly
You
difficult.
know, and
to
it
heat
just
that stuff
coats
out.
it with like a layer of gook or tar, and it just
Yeah, tar on everything. Well, yeah, we got a few headphones back with people that smoked,
yeah.
and yeah, it's like the whole shop now smells like smoke when you bring one headphone in for a
Yeah,
while.
right.
You know?
Yeah, because none of us do.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's kind of
Yeah.
like,
So
well,
it's
what
like,
is
it's
that?
like, yeah, it's like, why does it smell any
it
better?
scents the whole place.
But I guess the people that use them like that, they don't even notice because they're obviously in that
They're
environment.
immune.
So yeah.
Vapes too. We've noticed vapes are actually worse, I think, than
It
cigarette
seems to
smoke.
be much worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leave
It
a film.
deposits like a film of greasy stuff on the headphone.
Yeah.
All the surfaces, inside out, over everything.
You can even tell their favorite flavor. Like we've smelled vanilla.
Yeah, we got one headphone back. It was greasy and vanilla
Yeah,
smelling.
it's hard to clean off too.
Yeah.
Really difficult.
And it coats everything. It gets on the diaphragm. It gets in the speakers. It's
Yeah.
everything, and it's actually
Yeah.
semi-corrosive.
Right.
I'm not telling anyone what to do, but man, inhaling that can't be good for you. If I'm seeing what it does to some of the materials we have here, or some of the headphones over time, it's quite a layer of stuff.
Apparently, the concentration is sufficiently high in the atmosphere these devices are exposed to
I
that
guess
a little bit of it is deposited on the
it
surface.
seems like particulate when you exhale. The smoke must be really dense.
It
Apparently.
can be, yeah.
Yeah, enough to deposit on objects around
Well,
you.
people don't seem to understand what smoke is. They just see a cloud of vapor or smoke, and they think it's harmless. It's meaning it doesn't really have any significant impact. But it's just like the sea air over by a coastal region. There's little bits of salt in that air,
Yeah.
and it gets deposited on things. Just like whatever it is, like when you're vaping, the chemicals in the vape juice get deposited a little bit on all the surfaces around you. And if you happen to be wearing headphones when you're doing this, or if you're right next to headphones,
Yeah, or
in
the
fact-
electronics.
or electronics.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing with electronics, PCBs.
Because
and
it'll
stuff.
get into
This cause an
jacks and
issue.
stuff. You
Yeah.
know, you think about it, it could get into jacks and stuff and cause intermittent
And the
connections.
volume control. and
Volume
all
control,
that.
yeah, they don't like stuff like that. Although most of them tend to be semi-sealed, but you never know. Depends on the piece.
Yeah.
The lower the cost of the product, the more likely it is that this stuff's going to affect it because it's just wide open inside.
Well,
Well, that's, I think, irrelevant to some extent. Really, it's near impossible to totally seal a device like that unless you absolutely must have some sort of water protection. Their things aren't sealed particularly well.
No.
And even smartphones are susceptible to this, even though they have water resistance. The connectors, the jacks,
That's true.
will get corroded.
Especially
I've
the
seen
charge
that.
jack.
The charge
Yeah.
jack,
Yeah.
very common, yeah.
It's real easy because once you get stuff material in there, it kind of stays.
Right, you get an oily film in there.
Yeah,
It's
there's
slightly
no good way to
conductive,
clean it.
slightly corrosive. You can't
Yeah.
really get it out. And in fact, we've seen people share videos on the internet intentionally vaping into headphones, into high-end headphones.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
'Cause
for an effect?
They think
Yeah.
it looks cool, right?
Yeah.
When the smoke gets moved by the
Yeah.
driver or whatever, not understanding that this is intentionally depositing a somewhat hazardous chemical onto your
Yeah.
headphones. It's putting something that's slightly corrosive.
And I think in worst
Inside
case
your
scenarios, if you smoke enough of it and this stuff is nearby, it's going to affect it. It's got to have some corrosive effect.
I don't see how it can.
on contacts and anything that's metallic. Just like sea air would or anything else. It's
well, it
not
doesn't
right.
even need to be metallic. I mean, it'll deposit on the non-metallic diaphragm, and you'd be increasing the mass of it. And
Well, that's true too.
so
yeah.
we'll be changing the sound of your
right.
headphone
That weighs it
eventually.
down.
I don't know how long it would take.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah.
But
Not things we kind of measure here,
Yeah.
but yeah, we've seen results of that, and it's so. I mean, I think the best suggestion would be if you need to smoke outside or get it away from your electronics at least, and try to isolate that stuff. If you're worried about how long it's going to last.
This is the kind of thing that for most people over the course of a year or a few years probably won't matter. But if you're a very heavy user, or if you frequently smoke or vape indoors right next to your electronics, yeah, it absolutely will shorten the life. It will have an impact. I think it's incredibly challenging to design electronics and headphones to tolerate that long term.
Yeah, they're not really made for that.
I don't think anybody's going to, because it makes no sense.
Well, yeah, you can't really. I mean,
well, there'd be compromises.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about a whole different string of materials used all around. The PC boards have to be conformally coated, basically sealed in goop. so nothing can get at them. I mean, there's a lot that would be expensive and
It'd be very expensive and difficult.
Yeah, they just don't do that. I mean, you do that in marine applications, a lot of
Right.
times
Well,
if
you have to.
You know, you put you're going to have a marine radio or something.
Yeah.
They have to on a boat. It's obvious it's going to take some abuse.
Right.
So if you're going to vape, get marine grade material.
There you go.
But I mean, even beyond that, let's go beyond that. I mean, what else? You know, water, moisture. I mean, for cleaning things too.
Yeah.
You know, you really shouldn't be spraying liquids. Any kind of. You don't know what the liquid's going to do to the driver, the headphone. What's
Occasionally
inside.
you see that
So-
people spraying things directly on the product
Yeah,
to clean it.
you want to put it on a shaming or a, what do you call it?
Yeah.
Microfiber.
Microfiber, yeah. And then you just lightly dampen that with a spray. Then
Right.
wipe the product with it. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, electronics like a top like this, it's solid. I mean, you can spray it if it's really bad, dirty, and wipe
Yeah,
it. But
it's
it's
still not
usually
really
a bad
recommended.
idea. It's usually a bad idea.
Because if you spray it directly, even something like this, you could
Yeah,
get it
into the
wicking
screws.
underneath the screws,
Yeah.
and you could get stuff underneath.
And I mean, some
through
of
the
these cleaning
screw.
sprays are brutal. You don't know what's in it.
Right.
You know, and it sits there and festers. So yeah, you want
Yeah.
to avoid that.
Definitely a good idea to avoid spraying anything directly on a product.
Yeah,
Everyone will tell you that.
want to use lightweight cleaning materials. I always like stuff like those. Anything that was usable on glass where it doesn't leave a residue, it's probably a good idea. You know, you take like most of these spray cleaners, you spray it on glass, wipe it, and it leaves streaking everywhere.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And that means it's leaving material behind, and that's what you want to avoid. So usually, not ammonia. We're not talking about glass cleaning.
Right.
Don't use ammonia because ammonia eats metals. It's an acid. But you want to use something that tends not to leave a residue, or just if you don't know, just water.
Or just nothing.
Water is always a good
Microfiber.
option.
Yeah,
a
right.
damp microfiber
Yeah,
towel works
lightly
very well.
dampen. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what we
the
recommend
safest
for
bet.
our headphones. Damp microfiber
Right.
seems to be a very good option.
Agreed. It is the safest, particularly on the leathers too. I wouldn't put anything on the leather because that's definitely going to screw it up.
Yes.
The leathers on the headband and the ear pads absorb moisture, and they'll hang on to it. And at some point, it just gets saturated, and then the
Yeah.
glues let go, and then that things start to. You just obviously it fails. So yeah, you
On
want
things
avoid,
like very thin lambskin that's especially perforated, putting some sort of leather conditioner directly on it always seems to cause problems.
yeah.
It
It's gonna
causes it to
absorb
get
that.
greasy.
It's
It
oily.
stretches. Yeah.
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 It causes a lot of issues. We don't
And-
recommend
well,
any
and
type of
they also
leather
s-
conditioner on the ear
They
pads.
seem to like start picking up dirt and stuff too, and hairs and
Yeah, it's a snowball effect for sure.
It doesn't get better.
Yeah, once you layer it with any kind of cream or anything, it's just just going the wrong way.
Yeah.
And I mean, at that point, if you can't clean them right, if they can't be cleaned, then you're gonna replace them. There's just no other way around it. It's leather. It'd be like dumping syrup on your couch, leather couch, right? All right, I can wipe that off, but there's just always gonna. Seems like it'll always be a little sticky.
Yeah, no. That's
Especially if it sits there for a while. So that's kind of that's the best way to describe. Not a good idea is putting any kind of conditioners on this.
Yeah, I guess if you have a leather couch, you know all about it.
Yeah, you just don't really want to even get it wet.
Yeah.
Just not a good idea. Then you try to wipe it too hard or too much, you take the color off
That's
the
right.
damn thing.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, some pitfalls, but something to think about too. In using high-end products, electronics, any electronics, is
Well, what I hear is the number one reason for an RMA on power supplies for computers is apparently bugs getting into the
Really?
power supply box itself.
the fan sucks them in type thing.
Well, there's cracks. There's obviously air ventilation holes,
Yeah.
right? And so bugs crawl in. The user doesn't know anything about it. They get under the PCB or something like that. They short something out internally. And
It
it does
happens a
cause
lot.
the power supply to fail.
Yeah.
But it wasn't because the power supply was bad. It's just because there was ventilation holes and bugs got in.
Right.
And I'm sure that you see the same thing in all kinds of electronics. PCBs are not immune to this kind of damage. If you get a bug crawling around it, it could be slightly conductive. It could short out or conduct between two traces it's not supposed to and cause
Yeah.
damage.
Ants are good with that too, aren't they?
Mm.
Yep.
We don't really have ants like that. But
I've seen
yeah.
plenty of pictures on the internet of this kind of thing.
Yeah,
It's common.
I've seen ants fry themselves.
Yeah, well, they're just walking
Get
around. They
between
don't know.
things. Yeah.
It's common in relays too. Bigger relays, bugs get into them. They
Yeah.
cause them to stop not working, or they cause them to not be able to close anymore.
Keep bugs away from your stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it helps. Yeah. Keep bugs out of your house.
Yeah.
But yeah, bottom line, I mean, none of these things are really designed for, torture or abuses like that. They're just not. They're figuring you're going to have it in an indoor environment, controlled temperature. It's not raining or snowing in the house, and so and there's no forest fires going on, so you know.
Yeah, those
that's
aren't
another
good
factor.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that air
That's
quality
bad.
was pretty bad, man. You know, when you saw, I talked to some people, we know people that live over there, and I can't even imagine that. That's got to make a mess of things all around.
It's physical particles suspended in the air.
Yeah, right.
And in that case,
They
it's
gotta
probably
land.
conductive.
Oh, that's
That-
true.
And so it's
Yeah.
depositing this conductive material all over your things.
Yeah.
So that's a real issue.
I mean, you think most of that doesn't get indoors, but maybe it does.
It
I don't
does.
know.
It
Yeah,
does.
Yeah,
Houses aren't
Yeah, they're
airtight.
not
That's
airtight.
true.
Not even close.
that's
Actually.
true.
And even
Yeah.
if they were, you still open the doors.
Yeah,
You
and the
know?
duct tape doesn't work for that either.
Right. Duct tape doesn't really work now. But you see that in like forest fire areas or whatever. You see the coatings that's left over in the areas after the aftermath, after everything's
Yeah.
done and over with. That's still happening indoors. But if you have carpet, you don't really see it. But things like that accumulate over time on the PCBs of electronics inside your house, inside the products that you carry around with you. And it's not always practical or even possible in some cases to seal. Like open back headphones, you really can't stop all contaminants from coming in. By their very nature, they have to be open.
No.
Things that require airflow through them for ventilation.
I think a lot of people with like especially with the e-stats like stacks and stuff, I think they actually
Yeah.
cover or put
Yeah.
their headphones in something to protect them from keeping dust particles.
Some
out and
headphones
stuff.
designs are much more sensitive than others, and so they kind of require that. But it
It's
depends how much you
recommended,
care.
you know?
Right? Really depends on how long you want it to last, how long you expect it to last, the environment it's in.
And that might be a solution too. Like if you do vape indoors or you do smoke indoors.
Put enclosure over your
Yeah, put something to cover it
It's
or
not
put
a
it in a
terrible
case.
idea.
No, it's a really good idea actually, so that it's not exposed.
Right.
You know, or put it in another room.
Keep your electronics away.
Anything we covered enough. I think we covered enough air contaminants.
Yes.
Make people a little nervous about it. For the most part, it's not an issue, but if in extreme settings, it's
can be,
definitely
sure.
an issue. So
Yeah.
something to think about. Anyway, everyone, thanks for watching, and please subscribe to us. We got more coming always, and take care of yourselves.